Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Nordcraft 101. Today, we're going to be talking about formulas. Now, what we're going to be doing to learn about formulas is we're going to create a search feature with these users that we added in the last video and we learned about APIs. So if you want to follow along and catch up to where we're at, go ahead and watch the last video. The video will be in the top right corner of the screen, somewhere right there. So just click on that. It'll take you to the previous video, watch that, and then come back here. So we're going to learn to work with formulas by building this search feature. So if you don't know what formulas are like little blocks of code that allows us to manipulate data to the result that we're looking for. So we use formulas all the time here in Nordcraft to do various things. Like even if we want to show or hide something, I'm going to right click this F1 here and we can see this show and hide. This will bring up the formula screen. So in here in formulas, I'll just full screen this for you. We can then determine what should be the criteria to show or hide this thing based on the setup of the modules that we have here, the locks that we have in here. So you see we have things that are pretty familiar, or sorry, that's pretty basic in programming. We have objects, we have arrays, we have if or and, static values, and then a whole bunch of formulas that will do different things to your data. So why don't we just say, let's say, we can play around with this. Like, say, we'll show this if, so we'll add the if. What I'm going to kind of do is I'm going to kind of work backwards a little bit because I find that to be a little bit easier in Nordcraft than trying to work forward because sometimes these nodes don't connect to the right thing. So I try to work backwards as much as possible. So what I want to do, I'll just say it out loud, is that I want to show this. We're going to generate a number and I want to show it if a number is greater than a specific value. I don't know what the random number generator is going to give me yet, so I will figure that out shortly. So we're going to say if, let's say, is there a random number? Okay, it'll generate me a random number between 0 and 1. We'll say if random number is greater, we'll say, let me see. If random number is greater than, I guess we'll just go 0.5, then true, otherwise false. So we can see right now that it is not showing, but if I refresh the page, we might get a chance where we actually see one. Oh, no, I guess not. I guess what we can do is we can just sort of keep reopening this and see if we get one that's greater. Oh, sorry. So this should be true. So that H1 should be showing here, but for some reason it's not. If we find that, it might be something different in the editor than the browser. So you can see here in the actual tab it's working fine. So we see that sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. And that's working with formulas. So we can use, damn, that was a good stretch there for showing it. So we can also use formulas to do things like create a search feature. So in the last video, we got this API that returns us a random list of users. And now let's say we want this search feature to, as we're typing in, it should give us either if what we're typing in is in the name or it's in the email address. So let's figure out how we can kind of do that. Well, first, we're going to need a variable to track what the input is for our input. So we can just name this like search or something like that. And we'll set that, oh, and we'll set that to an empty string. Then we'll come over here to our input and we will bind it to variable and we'll say search. So now whenever this is updated, it would update our search value. As you can see right now, it equals nothing. But if I type in like hello and I go back, you can see, oops, that's not what I meant to open. You can see here in the current value, we have hello. Okay, perfect. So now what we want to do here is we want to show and hide these cards based on if the input here, currently being hello, is in either the name or the email address. So what we can do here is on this card base here, which is where the API is repeating for every single user object in the array, we can then do show and hide. Okay, now in here, let's figure out the logic that we'll need to do this. Well, we already know that we're going to need an if. Let's do that. Let's first say that this should only work if the size of search is greater than 1. So the size of search will be equal to the length of the input that we have it. So if it's hello, that is, what is that? 6, 5? That's 5. So we can see that if I just go, where should I show that? Let's go ahead and log here the search and then size. And you can see that we get 5. Now, just know that programming is 0 indexed. So that means the first element is actually 0, not 1. But when you use the size formula here in Nordcraft, it will give you the size as if the first value was 1. So while search for using the size formula says 5 here, in programming terms, is actually 4 because 0 counts as the first number in programming. So what I mean by that is if we try to actually log that size, so let's what can I do? Yeah, so we can say search get, and then I can put size here. Oops, what just happened? Search get, and what we want to get is search and size, and then remove size from here. You'll see that it's trying to get size and the fifth character in that string, in that value of hello, but it can't get it because that value does not exist because programming is 0 indexed. So you'll see that we'll actually get the fifth character, which should be, did I just have a lisp there or something like that? I don't know. We should be able to get the fifth character, which should be the O, by going to size here, and then we'll say -1. Now you see here that we get the O. I know that was a very long explanation, but it's needed for what I'm about to say. So what we're going to say here is in this show and hide back on the card base, we want to only work with this if search and size is greater than 0. So if I had 1 here, it would wait for 2 characters to be in. So I'll leave it as is right now, and then we'll build it, and then I'll show you why we had to do size that way, or had to learn about size. So we want to show this if item name includes search. Now there is going to be a problem with this formula, but I'm going to intentionally leave a problem, but we'll get to it when we circle back, right? So if item item name includes whatever is the value of search, or item email includes the value of search. And then we want this to be true. So let me full screen this, and then we can walk through the logic. Okay. So for one, this search is only going to start triggering if currently the size is greater than 1. So if we don't have anything in the input, then it'll show all the cards, because if it's not greater than 1, then it's going to trigger the else here, which will be true. So we can see that since we don't have any value currently in the field here, all the cards are showing. Okay, so now if it is true, if if the size of search is greater than 1, then we want to trigger this then here. And now what this then is saying is we have this or. So this or means that if any of these are true, then we're going to say that it's true, right? So if item name includes whatever is in search, then we want to show it. Or if item is sorry, yes, if item email includes whatever is in search, then we want to show it. Okay, so now you'll see, and now we're about to see what I was talking about with greater than 1, is that once I start typing something in, like let's go for Irvin there, let's go RV, then we see that we start to get them. But as you can see here, it only started triggering after the second character. So you see that if I go back one, even though I typed in R here, it's still showing me all of them. And this is why we had to learn about the size earlier, is because the size of what the size formula here is going to return you is something more of a human readable format. So we are saying if size is greater than 1, which using the size, it's going to actually be the second character, because remember, programming is actually 0 indexed, so the first character is actually 0, then we want things to work. So now if we want this to work properly, all we have to do is change this greater than from 1 to 0. And then now you can see that on the first character, let's go for what's one that not all of them might have. Let's go with M. Type in M, it immediately starts searching. Again, I'll show you it again. If I go back to the show and hide for the cards and I change this to 1, now we see all the cards again. But when I press another letter, like say R, or let's do E, there we go. Then we can see that it starts to filter them out, but only once there's 2 characters. Okay, but now we can see that what if we type in urban? Why did we not get the actual urban that's there? Well, the reason is because currently we have it set to exact value. So that means we have to type it in exactly as it is, including capitalization. So you see that if we don't type in the capital E, we don't get urban, even though we should have. But if we capitalize the E or just remove it, then we will get him. So how can we fix that problem? To fix that, all we got to do, well, let me make this, empty that again. So to fix this, we have to try to figure out a way to get the data to match. And the two most popular ways to do that, or I guess the only two ways that you can really do that, is either by converting everything to an uppercase, or, which I do most of the time, is convert everything to a lowercase. So what we'll say then is, and this includes for both of them, we're going to add lowercase formula between it. Now, what this is going to do is, as it says, is going to convert a string to lowercase. So now you can see what happens here is that Leanne started with the capital L, but then it passed through the lowercase formula, and now Leanne starts with a lowercase l. So we can do the same thing for search, because we want to match it. We want them to match, because we could have a capital L here in search and only the lowercase l here for Leanne's name, but that won't trigger Leanne. That won't be equal because it's looking for a sort of like an exact match. So capitalization does matter. But now if we since we set both of these to lowercase, even if we type in like no matter what capitalization we type in, like if it's funky, which I'll show you in a second, even if it's funky capitalization, it'll still show the right person. So again, we'll do the same thing for this. And then we can look at the difference. So you can see, let's go for Leanne. So you'll see that even if I do a lowercase l and an uppercase e, and I just make this as funky looking as possible, we're still getting Leanne, because this and all lowercase is equal to this in all lowercase. And you'll see that this also works for email. So let's go for number 8 with the email of Sherwood. We can type in Sherwood in all lowercase and still get it, or type it in all capital case and still get it in between. Um so that's how we work with formulas. Now there's a lot of formulas already predefined here in Nordcraft for you. As we can see, there's a very long list of formulas that are already created in here for you. But sometimes the formula or the use case that you're trying to use something for might not work the way you need it to, or you might need a custom formula. So we can actually add our own custom formulas to Nordcraft by coming over here to Files, and we can go to Formulas, and we can create one. I didn't actually plan for this, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Let's say we'll do contains letter, something like that. And what we can do here is we can accept 2 arguments. Let's accept the value that we're looking to pass in, like that might be a name, like say John. And then let's do the character to check for, and for that example, that might be a lowercase j. So then we can say that I didn't really plan for this, I'm really winging it. If we'll do an if here. Actually contains, no, I don't need to do an if. Oops, what just happened? Sorry. I think I deleted it on accident. Let's go ahead and do that again. Contains a letter. So let's do like a value that we're trying to check for. Like we'll have like a John with an uppercase J, and we'll do like a character with like a lowercase j. Then we can say that we want this to return true or false if value lowercase includes the character like so. So you can see that lowercase John does equal that j, so this will return true. Then we can say that if it has an a or something like that, then we see that we get false. Actually, I had to do lowercase a like that. Then we see that we get false. Okay, so now we can actually use this in the same cards here that we were working with. So now back at these cards here, let's say we want to, we'll get rid of this current search functionality, and we'll say that we only want to show these if, let's get in that new formula we just created. What was it called? Contains letter. We only want to show these if, let's say, name contains, like, I guess, a J or something like that. And we'll see if we get any. I don't know if any of them contain the J. We'll just work with Leanne. So we'll just go like LEA, like so. Then you see we get Leanne. Let me see another one that we can get. Let's go for Chelsea. So Chell, like that. Then you see that we get Chelsea. Now, the reason you're seeing Leanne is when you're working with items that are repeated, is always going to show you the first item, the one that's being worked on. But if we close the formula and we click on the empty space, so we have nothing selected, then you'll see that we actually get the right card here. So, and that's how you can create your own formulas to expand what is possible here in Nordcraft. So ladies and gentlemen, if you found this video helpful, if you learned something, do me a solid and leave a like, leave a comment on what you'd like to learn more of, and subscribe to this channel as we're trying to hit 100 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of your day and happy building.